All right, guys, so last week I made a video breaking down the Green Bay Packers salary cap for this upcoming offseason in 2024, kind of looking over all the contracts, some of the things the Packers are going to have to do to get under the salary cap. And I asked you guys if you wanted me to kind of take over the salary cap, pretend to be the GM of the Green Bay Packers, and fix the salary cap. A lot of you said yes, so in today's video, we're going to fix the Green Bay Packers salary cap. This is a series I've done for the last couple of years because the Packers continue to be kind of in a salary cap bind for the last couple off seasons by pushing contracts further and further down the road. And it's going to happen again this year. So a lot of teams do this now where they push money further and further down the line and just worry about paying it later, but then it creates salary cap implications in future off seasons like we're going to see today. So I hope you guys learn a thing or two about the salary cap. I know it can be confusing, but my goal here is to kind of teach you guys what it looks like to kind of look at a salary cap of an NFL team and how they kind of work around paying people less now and more later, and how you always see these teams way over the cap, but then all of a sudden magically under the cap by the new league year start. Also, guys, we are so close to 50,000 subscribers, just over 500 more subscribers hit 50K. I can't thank you guys enough to everyone who watches the videos, leaves support on the channel, leaves comments, and of course hits the subscribe button. And actually just about 61% of the people that watch my videos over the past month actually aren't subscribed. So I would really appreciate it if you did go down and click that subscribe button and we could hit 50K. It would just be so amazing. And again, I can't thank you guys. If you do subscribe, you'll get tons of Packers content throughout this entire offseason regarding the salary cap, free agency, draft, and everything to do with the offseason, all Green Bay Packers, all here on this channel. All right, without further ado, let's bring up the screen and quickly we're going to go over the current salary cap for the Green Bay Packers. The Packers right now are over the cap or negative money, $2.857 million, as we see here highlighted, and effective cap space. So this is like kind of implementing what the draft would cost, the upcoming draft class, $7.396 million over the cap. So the Packers have to clear this $2.8 million before the new league year start in the middle of March. I believe it's March 13th, but the Packers have to be under the cap before the new league year start. And of course, like I said, I made a video last week kind of breaking down the salary cap. I didn't do any of the fixes, but if you want to see a deeper dive into each contract and what they look like before they potentially get fixed, go click that link right above. All right, so now diving into the Green Bay Packers salary cap here. At the top, we can see their cap space for 2024, 25, 26, and 27. So right now, like I said, over the cap by 2.8 million. Next year, that jumps up to 94 million. This is the way it tends to be, and then teams push out more money, and that the next future numbers get lower and lower and lower as you extend players and push out more money. So looking on the right, we have all our current free agents, the unrestricted, the restricted, and the exclusive rights free agents on the right there. We'll get into that as well in this video. And then at the left table here, it shows all the contracts by the current players of the Green Bay Packers, whether they're currently under contract with the Packers or they have a void year for this upcoming year. And it's sorted by most cap number to least cap number. And at the top is David Bakhtiari. And this is the first thing that I think the Packers have to deal with. So there's kind of a weird thing going on right now with David Bakhtiari to where it's a hard decision to make, and it's kind of a confusing one. So right now he's due $40 million against the cap in 2024. $19 million of that, or the prorated bonus here, is going to be paid by the Green Bay Packers no matter what. So if the Packers cut him, if the Packers trade him, or he retires, $19 million is what the cap hit will be against the Packers salary cap in 2024 regardless. So the Packers can only get rid of this $20 million base salary. So as you see here on the right, 19 million dead, 20 million cap savings if they were to cut him pre-June 1st. Now here's where it gets a little tricky with David Bakhtiari. If they were to take his contract past the new league year start in the middle of March, then decided to cut him, then there's more of an issue with an injury grievance where he could come after more of that money via the court, and the Packers could be tied to more of his salary. Now the thing with the injury grievance situation, which we won't dive into too much, is it becomes more of a problem if the Packers were to cut him after the new league year start on March 13th. So it kind of makes more sense if the Packers were to cut him before the new league year start, and then I think they'd be on board for $2 million of his base salary, so they wouldn't save $20 million, they'd save like $18.9 million off the cap and incur $19 million dead. Now he could still file an injury grievance regardless. I just think it's more of a case if we cut him after the new league year start, he hadn't passed a physical at that point. And then you might be sitting here wondering, well, why can't they just trade Bakhtiari? Well, the thing is, you can't trade a player until after the new league year start. So then they would be carrying him into the new league year, and then he would have to pass a physical once being traded to a team. And if he doesn't pass a physical, then he reverts back to the Packers roster. Then if they were to cut him, then he could file that injury grievance. So it's a very weird situation. I hope you guys are following along because it is a very confusing one. So something that I could see happening outright, David Bakhtiari being cut from the roster before March 13th. I know a lot of us wouldn't like it because you're probably thinking he has value, but another team, are they going to, trade for him, give up draft capital and pay him, $19-20 million, right? It's hard to say. So at $40 million cap hit, that's not going to remain. No matter what, this is going to change. You could extend David Bakhtiari. Are they going to extend him without knowing for certain that he's going to be healthy and those knee issues are in the past? Can you confidently even say that? So that one for me is a very big long shot. David Bakhtiari has declined void years every time he's been restructured, so he has full control over his contract in the last year of it, like we're seeing here. He kind of orchestrated that, so he kind of has control, and he does. And I just think it's a hard situation. With the rise of Rasheed Walker, he's probably our starting left tackle of the future. They have Zach Tom at right tackle. They likely draft another tackle, and they could save $20 million off the cap so long an injury grievance isn't filed. But if they do it before March 13th, there's a better chance they could kind of get away with it, per se. They could, like I said, it could still happen. But in this case, I just think it's the course of least restriction, and that would be to cut David Bakhtiari before March 13th, saving you $20 million, and the Packers then jump up to $18 million under the cap. Next on this list is Kenny Clark. His salary cap is currently at $27.4 million. This is the last year of his contract, and he'll be turning 29 years old. So you're kind of also in another weird situation where a player is about to turn 29 into 30. Do you give him another 3-4 year extension for a player about to hit 30? It's a hard situation, but he's also due a lot of money this year, and he has void years already added onto his deal, where he's going to be due money next year, even if he's not on the roster. So you could do a restructure and push another $11 million out, or you could simply extend him for maybe another 2 to 3 years and also push money out. It's hard to say what the Packers are going to do with Kenny Clark. I thought he really came on late in this year and played excellent in the later half of this season, and I would be happy with, say, a 2 to 3 year extension onto his current deal, and then that contract would then end when he's like 31, 32 years old. I think that would be fair, but for the sake of this video, I'm not going to go over what that contract would look like because they're going to kind of save the same amount this year. If they were to do a restructure or an extension, they're going to push a lot of the money into the future regardless. So if you were to do a restructure for Kenny Clark or an extension, like I said, you could save, up to $11.2 million on this year's cap hit. Again, a restructure isn't a pay cut. So they're simply pushing this money out into the future, deciding not pay it right now and saying, we'll pay it later. That's a very big misconception in the salary cap area in the NFL, is that a restructure or a restructure will happen and people thank the player for taking a restructure. They don't have to agree to a restructure. They have no say in it unless void years are added, which in most cases there are void years added because it's kind of been the way to get around the salary cap recently, which a player does have to agree to, the void years, and that's why David Bakhtiari doesn't have any. But an overall restructure is simply turning base salary into bonus and then prorating it over so many years of left on their contract or void years. They're still getting that money, it's just spread out, actually getting it sooner rather than later, so it's a benefit to the player to restructure anyways. It's not a pay cut. A pay cut is what Aaron Jones did last year, took his base salary down. So in this case, we are going to restructure Kenny Clark here and save $11.2 million on the salary cap. So then his cap hit would drop down to $15 million, and the Packers would then have $29 million in cap space. So a lot of people always say, oh, the Packers have no money. Look what Brian Gutekunst did. In 2 moves, we already have $30 million in cap space. And again, that's, cutting David Bakhtiari, hopefully nothing bad happens there, and pushing more money out of Kenny Clark. So you're still going to pay it, but to say the Packers have no wiggle room this year or can't sign any free agents because of what Brian Gutekunst did, it's simply just not true. The next highest contract for the Green Bay Packers is Jaire Alexander. He's going to be turning 27 years old. Of course, there's a whole fiasco this year of him being suspended for a game and then people saying the Packers are going to trade Jaire. I don't see that happening. I would be shocked to see Jaire being traded. The Packers are already light in the cornerback room. It's going to be a need in the draft already with Jaire in the building. I would be super shocked to see them trade Rasul in 1 year, Jaire the next, with a super light cornerback room. I do not see it happening also because of his contract. He's signed through 2026. He has a cap hit this year of $23 million, next year $25 million, the year after that $27 million. You would lose money trading him pre-June 1st. You would incur 27 dead and lose $3.4 million off the salary cap. I do not see that happening at all. Now, there was one void year added to his deal, I believe, last year to push only $2.3 million out. So if the Packers wanted to save a little bit more money off the salary cap to maybe go sign some other free agents, kind of buy into this team right now where it's young and they could be a Super Bowl, caliber team for the next years to come, and they want to buy in and bring more talent in, they could also restructure Jaire. I don't think it would be a max restructure to push out $10.6 million. I'd say they do about half of that. So actually about cutting that in half and doing the restructure, then his cap hit drops down to $19 million, very manageable. They didn't save $10 million on that. They saved about $5 million on it. I just cut that restructure in half and you're pushing out less money, paying more of it now so you're not, putting yourself in too much of a hole with all of these contracts in later years, and that would bring the Packers salary cap up to $34 million. Then you have Aaron Jones, and his cap hits at $17 million, and I talked about this in the previous video. I don't see it staying here. A restructure, it doesn't seem like an option to me just because they've already done that so much. And when you look at his contract, he has 3 void years added, and it's already $6.6 million restructure from the last year or two pushed out into these void years. So if you were to push another almost $8 million out, you'd be paying him $14 million next year when he's off the team. So that's not that much less than what his current cap hit would be right now at $17 million. So I don't see that happening. So it's a very weird situation. If you were to restructure him, it wouldn't be the max restructure. It'd be a slight restructure, maybe get his cap hit down to like 14, 15 million, save 3 million this year, and then just take that hit next year. Now, will Aaron Jones take another pay cut? He took money off his base salary this year. Would he do it again? He's due $11 million base salary. So, if Aaron Jones were to take another pay cut and to simply take like say $3 to $4 million off his base salary, which then would look like this, his base salary down to 7.1 million, his cap hit down to 13.7. If Aaron Jones were to even do that, right? He wants to be a Green Bay Packer. This dude is the definition of a Green Bay Packer. He earned his money. I don't want him to take another pay cut, but I think if he wants to remain here, he might have to do it yet again. And I hate to put Aaron Jones in that situation again, but I think if there is going to be a player to do it, it's going to be him. And a $17 million cap hit for a running back, I believe, is the highest in the league. In terms of his salary average per year, I think he's like tied with Christian McCaffrey, which Aaron Jones is excellent. But a $17 million cap hit is just way too much. So I'm going to go under the premise that Aaron Jones takes another hometown discount, takes another pay cut to stay with Green Bay, finish out his career hopefully in Green Bay. He's going to be turning 30 years old. That's usually the shelf life of running backs. I could see him playing till 31, 32, 33. But the Packers very well could maybe extend him. It's a hard situation. There's a lot of contracts on this salary cap that you go, it's kind of hard to see what they're going to do. Are they going to extend? Are they going to restructure? Are they going to cut them? A lot of these players, these veteran players are like right around that 29, 30-year-old mark, which is very hard to see what teams are going to do with them. But in this case, I am going to give him a slight pay cut. Hopefully Aaron Jones does that as well. Again, I know he earned his money, but for the sake of the Packers salary cap. But taking a pay cut here is something that would really help the Packers, save them $4 million off the salary cap for this year, bringing their total up to $37 million. Before we have some options down here, Preston Smith is due $16.5 million. A lot of people would say he played up to that mark in 2023, and he deserves to be on this roster. And I would agree with you. But when you look at his contract, man, it's a confusing one because it's 16 million this year, 17 the year after that, 18. He's signed through, 2026 at 34 years old. He does have one void year added, so they can still definitely restructure him, and that's something they may do. I don't think it's going to be a max restructure, but I think the Packers could restructure a little bit. So they could save a maximum of nearly $8 million on a Preston Smith restructure. If they do it this year, they're going to have to, again, do it next year and then have to decide what they're going to do with Preston Smith. But I highly doubt he's cut or traded just due to the length of his contract remaining. So instead of doing a max restructure here, we're actually going to restructure Preston, but only take a little bit off. So I did that, dropped his cap hit down just about $3 million, a little bit over, I think, down to $13.8 million. Now the Packers have $40 million in cap space. Rashawn Gary, you're not going to touch that contract. That's fine. Elton Jenkins, I'm okay at $14 million. Devondre Campbell, here's one where you can't trade him or cut him pre-June 1st. It simply doesn't make sense, but the Packers are going to be under the cap by this point, by the new league year start. So then once the new league year starts, you could designate Devondre Campbell to either a post-June 1st cut or a post-June 1st trade, which would save the Packers $10 million, $10.5 million, and they'd only incur $3.6 million off the cap. I don't know if a team would trade for Devondre Campbell, the age he's at, the injury concerns he's had. And that's not what this video is about, is what players would get back in a trade. And a trade post-June 1st or a cut post-June 1st would be the same monetary value. So for the sake of this, I think the Packers move on from Devondre Campbell. I think they go younger at linebacker. I think they draft one in the middle rounds, ride with Quay Walker, Isaiah McDuffie, a draft pick, maybe even sign someone in free agency. There's a lot of young, talented guys that will be hitting free agency in the middle linebacker position. And I think the Packers just kind of have to go younger there. And, it's sad to say because Devondre was such a addition to this defense that first year, but it's gotten worse and worse as years gone on, his talent and his availability. And at $14.2 million for an inside linebacker, that is a lot of money. So I think at this point, the Packers do trade/cut him with a post-June 1st designation this season and go younger. So now with that move, the Packers have $51 million in cap space. And the reason I'm clearing this much is because they have their own free agents. They have restricted free agents, exclusive rights free agents. But not only that, they have Jordan Love. And Jordan Love is going to see a mega extension after May. That's when they can revisit his contract after May, and they're going to give him a mega extension. They're not going to ride into 2024 in the last year of his deal and let him play even better than he did last year and then get bought out by another team or price him out too much. They're going to give him a mega extension regardless, and that's going to happen this summer. I'm almost certain of that. I'm not going to go into the details of what that will look like, but I will say his cap number will jump up from $12 million this year. I don't think they're going to backload it extremely and keep this at $12 million or even lower it, especially if they make all these moves prior and clear up $51 million. I think they can afford then to give Jordan Love his mega extension, pay him right this year, kind of even that out through that contract length and make it more realistic for future years as well to keep your team competitive. So I'm not going to, do that here. But just for the sake of things, I'm going to just adjust his current contract. Again, this isn't an extension that I'm making. I'm just going to adjust it so his cap hit rises from $12 million to $24 million. That's just a broad assumption to when he gets extended, maybe what his cap hit could be this next season when that extension happens. Like I said, I'm not doing the legwork of what the contract will look like, just making it so it looks like his cap hit goes higher in 2024. So they were at like $50 million. Now they're down back to $39 million after they extend Jordan Love. Moving down the list, you have Darnell Savage, who's not under contract, but has a $5.4 million cap hit because of that void year. So the way the Packers could adjust this, make this lower, is by extending Darnell Savage. And that would be to a 1 year, a 2 year extension, and then kind of moving that money around that new 2 year, 3 year deal to where his cap hit is either the same this year or slightly lower. Honestly, if they were to extend Darnell, I say at $5 million a year, that's not that bad. I know some people would disagree, but he's still, he's still a 26-year-old safety right now. He could still grow. The Packers are thin at safety. So for the sake of an extension, I don't think they would try to drop his current amount too much. I just think it would allow them to keep the player with the money they're going to be paying him anyway. So I'm not going to adjust this year's cap hit for him. $5.4 million. I do think they bring him back, but then that will kind of stay around that same mark and they'll just have the player for the next, 1, 2, 3 years. Now moving down the list, you have a bunch of players on rookie contracts, so obviously nothing's going to get touched there. Josh Nijman is a upcoming free agent, but he also has a void year at $2.5 million. I say they just eat this. He goes and signs with another team, maybe becomes a starting tackle on another team, and the Packers move on. I feel like other players have just performed better than him. Rasheed Walker took over that role and performed very well, and that is his role now. They still have Caleb Jones. They have Luke Tenuta. I just think Josh Nijman's expendable, and they already owe him $2.5 million in a void year. They're just going to eat that and let him walk. Going down this list, again, more players on rookie deals. You also have Keyshawn Nixon, who has a void year. They could definitely bring him back, and I think that is someone they do extend. So I did give him a 2-year extension, something, not too crazy because he likely will be the 3rd or 4th cornerback and mainly just a returner. And even though he's an all-pro returner, they're not going to be paid a ton of money. And Nixon, turning 27 years old, but I think the Packers love him in that defense. He's a team leader. He's a great kick returner, and I think they do bring him back. So he already has a void year that they're going to be paying him anyway, so I think they just extend him, and maybe this cap number raises up a little bit. So that's exactly what I did here. Going down the list, we have Royce Newman, who's under contract. He would save $1 million if they were to cut him. This is easy for me. No explanation. We're going to go ahead there and cut Royce Newman and save $1 million. I'm also going to go ahead and cut Matt Orzech, the long snapper. There's been so many times this year, and I know people love to blame Anders Carlson, but the snaps have been terrible. They've been skipping off the ground, where then you have Daniel Wheeling have to quickly get that ball, get it set for Anders. And the first kick they made against the 49ers, that ball was not set, and Anders still made that kick. People like to overlook that, but then blame him for the bad kick when the snaps have been, pretty bad all year. Packers need to go new route, new long snapper. I hate that we continue to have long snapper issues, so I'm cutting Orzak, saving $1.1 million, and hopefully they can bring in someone again and retry. I know that he was a free agent acquisition last year, and we thought it'd be better because he was good with the Rams. That wasn't the case, so cutting him, let's bring someone in new. Then everyone else under contract isn't going to be touched, in my opinion. They could cut Zane Anderson, save $1 million. Do they want to keep him for special teams? Probably. I thought he was a good special teamer. It's just he shouldn't be on the defense at all, but for special teamer's sake, I'm going to keep him on the team. Everyone else under rookie contracts, so nothing really to touch here, and then you have the top 51 cutoff because they only have to pay for the top 51 players. So right now we have $40 million after doing all the moves that I think are applicable for this team. So now we can take a look at their current free agents with the $40.6 million we have available to us. So first, I'm going to go over the exclusive rights free agents. These are a no-brainer. They're basically not free agents. Exclusive rights free agents, you basically still own like the rights to them, and you simply have to put an ERFA tender here at $985,000. It's a no-brainer for anyone that's an exclusive rights free agent to do this because it's such a cheap contract. So you do it to Caleb Jones for that $985,000. You would do it to Emmanuel Wilson, same thing. You do it to Daniel Whelan. I thought he was a good punter. Then you have restricted free agents here, and this is something that you have to give a tender to. They did it with Josh Nijman, a second-round tender. That's at a price of $4.6 million. You could do a right of first refusal tender, which is at $2.8 million. Robert Rochelle, Patrick Taylor, the only two restricted free agents, I would say, are not worth $2.8 million cap hit. So they would simply just let them walk and probably not bring them back anyways. If they were to bring back Patrick Taylor, it would be at a veteran minimum after this, but they wouldn't accept the restricted free agent tender. Then going up the list, we have Christian Welch as an unrestricted free agent, kind of been on and off the roster, I believe, through practice squad, a special teamer, if that. They could just bring in someone else if they really wanted to. Tyler Davis is someone they've been, high on for the most part. I think you just give him another 1-year veteran minimum deal just simply like that. And his cap hit would be like $1.3 million for a guy that's going to mainly play special teams. That's fine. Josiah DeGuara, I say they let walk unless they really want to bring him back and give him like one more chance. But to me, it just doesn't make too much sense. Corey Ballantyne is someone who really stepped up, and I think the Packers do give him a 1-year or 2-year extension here. So I'm going to do that. His base salary at $1.5 million, give him a signing bonus of $750,000. So his cap number would be $2.2 million. So just a 1-year deal there. A very nice special teamer, depth cornerback that can step up. He's going to be 28 years old, so kind of on the back end there, but a solid role player in this defense. Then we have Rudy Ford turning 30 years old. I say they let him walk. He kind of stopped playing at all later in the season, and then I believe was injured, and a whole mess of things. And I just think the Rudy Ford thing is done in Green Bay. Although I did like him when he was starting, I think it is done and over with. Then we have A.J. Dillon. I think the Packers really like A.J. Dillon. Now, I don't know what kind of deal this would look like, but if I think they were to re-sign him, it would be a 1 or 2 year deal, maybe at $4.5 million per year. I think the Packers really like A.J. Dillon, and I think they do try to bring him back. So for the sake of things, I'm going to sign him to a 2-year deal. Base salary of $3 million this year, next year up to $3.25, and also give a signing bonus of $2.5 million. That would put his cap number this year at $4.2, next year jump up to $4.5. I think it's a very manageable deal for someone like A.J. Dillon, who's still young, could still technically be running back number 1 if they don't bring back Aaron Jones, but I think the Packers are still going to draft a guy, maybe even bring in a free agent, but I think they do really like A.J. Dillon, and he'll likely be back. Next is Eric Wilson, a key special teamer for the Green Bay Packers. I think this is a no-brainer here, and you definitely extend him. Is it going to be more than the veteran minimum? Who knows? But for the sake of things, I'm going to keep it as that at a $1.2 million cap hit for a 1-year deal. Then we have John Owens. This is one that I don't know what the Packers are going to do here. I know they like him a lot more than us fans do. He's going to be turning 29 years old. He was a solid starter when we needed him. There was times where he was bad, but there was also times when he was good. He can play special teams. He's a good role player. It seems like he's a leader. So the Packers very well could bring him back for another year with how thin that safety room is after letting Rudy Ford walk, seeing maybe what they do with Darnell Savage. I still think they draft 2 safeties in the draft, so maybe they just go young and kind of rebuild that room like they did tight end and just simply go draft picks. But for that sake, I'm going to leave John Owens as it is. I'm not going to re-sign him to this roster just yet. I think there's other options in free agency, such as someone like Geno Stone from Baltimore that would be well worth your money rather than paying John Owens and maybe some other lighter free agent, right? So I think I'm going to leave it as is. Then we have Jon Runyan as the last free agent. Now, this is something that's also confusing to me a little bit because Jon Runyan, I think, could get starter money around this league. He could go and get paid as a starting guard in the NFL because he was all year, and he was a decent pass blocker, not good in the run game at all. And later in the season, the last 3 weeks, it was his best 3 weeks of the season. So he definitely played hot towards the end of the season, and very well because of that could get a starting contract on another team. I'm on the side of saying no. I think Sean Rhyan is the right guard for 2024, but I still like competition. I just think they can get competition for cheaper, and who knows if Jon Runyan wants to be a backup guard. He probably thinks he could be a starter. Now, I know he wants to remain in Green Bay. He loves Green Bay. I just don't see paying him over $5 million cap hit. I just don't see it. So for this sake, I'm also going to let Jon Runyan walk, hopefully get a deal somewhere else, start somewhere else, and then the Packers maybe draft an interior lineman in the 4th or 5th round, something that they're very good at. So that's all the free agents dealt with as myself as general manager. Now, will they bring back John Owens and Jon Runyan? They might. They very well could. Those are two players that Brian Gutekunst and Matt LaFleur like and very well could bring back. But for the sake of me being GM today, I'm not going to do it. So after all the moves that they did, restructuring, cutting players, extending players, signing exclusive rights free agents, signing unrestricted free agents from their impending free agent list, after all of that, extending Jordan Love, kind of predicting what his cap hit could be in 2024, we still have $35 million to play around with for the 2024 offseason for free agency. You got to allocate about $7 to $10 million for the draft class and other things to make that cap more effective, right? So the Packers still roughly have, $25 to $27 million after the draft to play around with to sign free agents, maybe sign a safety, an inside linebacker, interior offensive lineman, a defensive lineman, right? There's so many options there. So if you guys want me to kind of go over some of the free agent options at each position group, I think I'm going to start doing a series going over position group for free agency every week. So let me know if you want to see that. Leave that down in the comments below. So to everyone saying the Packers won't have money to do anything this free agency, I hear that song and dance every single offseason, and yet the Packers and other teams like the Saints, who are way worse off, still clear that money and still sign free agents. And that's why a lot of people say the cap isn't real. It's very real. It's just how you book it. It's how you portray certain contracts out over a longer period of time. It's not that you're getting rid of this money or you're hiding it. It's simply you're not paying it right now. You're paying it later, and later is usually when you have less players under contract or key players under rookie contracts that are very cheap, and that's why it says right now the Packers have still $101 million for 2025. That's because Bakhtiari is off of it. Aaron Rodgers is off of it, right? Those are the things that happen. But right now, with everything I did, they would still have $35 million to go into free agency and add some key players to really, round out this roster and go after another Super Bowl next year and really become a powerhouse team in the NFC under Jordan Love, Matt LaFleur. I think this team can really do it, and I think they start off by doing some of these moves. Hopefully I get most of them right. I'm usually pretty good at guessing what the Packers are going to do in terms of salary cap. It's something I love to dive down into. So if you guys did enjoy this, please leave a like down below. And also, if you want to see more of an explanation on anything I talked about in today's video, let me know down below and I'll make a separate video on that just to kind of explain it. I know a lot of this can be confusing if you're just starting to learn about salary cap. It is very confusing. So I appreciate you guys coming by. It was probably a long video, but it always is with the Green Bay Packers and fixing their salary cap. So I do hope you guys enjoyed, but I'll catch you on the next one. And as always, go Pack Go.